I returned home for Christmas, but my place at the table was missing. It's just immediate family this year, Mom said, placing a plate for my sister's fiancé. I walked out and silently stopped the rent transfers and loan payments. At 8:20 a.m., 32 angry messages, all in capital letters, and 40 minutes later, a loud knock on the door. From this was the saddest Christmas, not because something tragic happened, not because I was stranded or sick or heartbroken, but because I drove 20 minutes through the snow back to the house I grew up in, thinking I still had a place at the table, and I didn't. We all live in Buffalo. Snow is just a part of life here. You don't cancel plans over it. You bundle up, scrape the ice off your windshield, and you go. I grew up learning how to brake before turns and how to steer into a skid before I even had my permit. So, when I loaded up my car with gifts, wine, and a pie early on Christmas Eve, I wasn't worried about the snow. I was worried about how things had felt lately. Tense, distant, not overtly hostile, just off. So it was Christmas. You don't skip Christmas. And I tried. I really had. I helped Rachel cover her car loan earlier that year when her hours got cut. Sent grocery cards to my parents when their utility bills got out of control. I even helped pay off some back rent on their lake house just to keep things afloat. Nobody ever said thank you, but I didn't expect it. That's not why I did it. I pulled into the driveway around 4. Everything looked normal. Lights glowing from the front window, wreath on the door, the smell of cinnamon and cloves drifting out when I stepped inside. I brought in 2 large bags of presents and a pie I'd stayed up late baking the night before. The living room was warm, filled with voices and music. Rachel waved at me. Brett gave me a casual nod. I asked Mom if she wanted help setting the table. She barely glanced up. We're doing immediate family only this year. She said it like she was mentioning the weather. No explanation, no apology. I stood there for a second thinking maybe she'd made a mistake, but then she turned and placed a plate at the end of the table. For Brett, Rachel's fiancé, her fiancé of 8 months who doesn't even live in Buffalo. The one who called us a low-key family and once told me I seemed like I worked too much. I looked at the table. 6 settings. Mom, Dad, Rachel, Brett, my uncle, and his girlfriend. That was it. No extra plate, no folding chair in the corner, no space for me. Rachel stepped over and said it wasn't her decision, that she didn't know they were doing things that way. Then she said we could do our own Christmas tomorrow, just the 2 of us. But she didn't look like she meant it. I didn't argue. I didn't cry or demand answers. I just picked up the bags I brought in, turned around, and walked out. They let me. I sat in my car for a while down the street, watching the lights through the falling snow. I'd spent half my paycheck this month on those gifts. I bought my dad a new drill he'd been eyeing for months. Got Mom a new purse to replace the one with the broken zipper. I even asked Rachel for Brett's favorite authors, just to make sure I picked a book he'd like. I drove home, parked outside my apartment, and sat in silence for a long time. I couldn't figure out what hurt more, that they didn't want me there, or that they didn't think I'd mind. Around midnight, I opened my laptop and started canceling everything. The $600 monthly rent help I was sending my parents. Gone. Rachel's car loan payments I'd been quietly covering since July. Over the Amazon Prime account they all shared under my name, canceled. My name was the one on the Netflix account, too. That went next. No warning, no message. I just flipped the switch and went to bed. The next morning, at exactly 8:20 a.m., my phone buzzed. 32 messages, all in capital letters, all from my mom and Rachel. And 40 minutes later, there was a loud, steady knock on my front door. I didn't answer it. I just sat there drinking coffee and listening because I knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The knocking didn't stop. At first, it was loud and frantic. Then, it turned to ringing, then back to pounding again. I let it happen. I wasn't ready to open the door, and honestly, I was curious how long they'd keep at it. My phone had already lit up with message after message, most from my mom and Rachel, a few from my dad that looked like they were written under pressure. Short clipped sentences that didn't sound like him. I didn't open any of them, but I read the previews as they flashed across the screen. Panito, this is childish. Why are you acting like this? Are you seriously doing this over one dinner? You're being cruel. Stop being cheap. Rachel needs your help. We're family. It was like they were throwing everything they could think of at me, hoping one angle would work. Guilt, obligation, shame, emotional blackmail. Nothing new. When I finally opened the door, they were both standing there, no coats. It was snowing lightly, and they looked cold, but neither seemed to care. My mom looked furious. Rachel looked exhausted, like she'd been up all night figuring out what to say. Mom spoke first, skipping right over any greeting. She asked what I had done, why the money wasn't going through, why her grocery card was suddenly declined, why Rachel couldn't make her car payment. She said I was overreacting and blowing things out of proportion. I asked her what she thought I was reacting to. She said, "You weren't uninvited. It was just a smaller dinner." I reminded her that Brett, who they've known less than a year, had a plate. She didn't even try to deny it. She just crossed her arms and said, "Well, he's part of Rachel's future. We didn't think you'd make a big deal out of it." Then she said, the part that stuck with me most, "It's your responsibility to support this family. You have no husband, no kids, and you make good money. Rachel's starting a life. She needs help more than you do." Rachel didn't jump in. She didn't deny it or apologize. She just stood there quietly like she agreed, but didn't want to be the one to say it out loud. That's when it hit me. My role in this family had become a utility account. I was the one they turned to when things got rough, expected to soak up the stress, fix the problems, and do it quietly because I had less to lose. I told them things were changing. I wasn't going to keep pouring my time, money, and energy into people who saw me as nothing more than a resource. I said I hoped Brett could handle the weight I'd been carrying all year. They stood there, bouncing between pleading and guilt-tripping. Mom asked if I was really going to let this ruin the holidays. Rachel said we shouldn't carry this bitterness into the new year, that it wasn't healthy. But it wasn't bitterness, it was clarity. Eventually, I told them to leave. It wasn't up for debate. They left. That night, I sat in silence in my living room, the lemon pie still unopened on the counter. No TV, no phone. Just me, processing. New Year's Eve came, and I spent it alone. I didn't feel festive, or even angry, just a dull, heavy sadness that settled in my chest and stayed. I thought cutting them off would bring relief, but it brought silence instead. That silence didn't last. On January 3rd, I got a message I never expected, not from my parents or Rachel, but from Brett. And it changed everything. I'd spent the past few days trying to move on, deleting old texts, clearing group photos from my camera roll, boxing up leftover Christmas gifts. The lemon pie went uneaten. I tossed it on New Year's Day. Then Brett's message came. No greeting, no context. "I don't know if I should send this, but you deserve to hear it." Attached was an audio file. I almost deleted it without listening. I was exhausted, still stinging from sitting outside their house, uninvited, while they carved ham and passed plates around a table I used to belong to. But curiosity, or maybe that dangerous flicker of hope, made me press play. The first few seconds were just background noise, clinking cutlery, low voices, faint Christmas music. It was their dinner, the one I wasn't part of. I recognized every voice. My uncle asked how the martyr was doing, meaning me. Mom laughed and said, "She's probably sulking in her apartment, acting like we ruined her life." Rachel chimed in, "She'll get over it. She always does. Needs her moment to play victim. I'll be nice in a few weeks, till she starts sending money again." Someone chuckled. "Dad," quieter, said, "At least we can have one holiday without her lectures." Another voice, I couldn't tell who, mocked how I dressed like I'm going to a job interview and give gifts like I'm being graded. They all laughed, except one voice. Brett. He didn't join in. He sounded uneasy. Halfway through, after Rachel made another jab about playing the good sister to get rent money, Brett said, "You know she can probably hear this through the door, right?" The table went silent. That's where the recording ended. I didn't cry or throw my phone. I just sat there, a cold knot in my stomach, the kind you get when you realize the people you love have been mocking you behind your back for years. Not just once, but casually, like a routine. Brett sent another message. "I'm sorry. I didn't know they talked like that about you. I recorded it because it felt wrong. I didn't think they'd say it to your face, but then I realized they probably do, just quieter." I told Rachel it was messed up. We argued. I moved into the house after New Year's, and it's been tense since. I didn't reply right away. I didn't know what to say. He didn't have to send that recording. He could have stayed quiet, played neutral. But he didn't. Even if I wasn't sure about his motives, that act showed he had some conscience, more than I could say for the rest of them. Over the next few days, I went further than I planned. I removed them as emergency contacts, blocked their access to my calendar and location sharing, deleted them from my shared Amazon account, changed my streaming passwords, and cut off anything I'd set up for their convenience. The final straw came when Rachel messaged me a few days later. No apology, no mention of what happened. Just one line. "Hey, can you turn the rent payments back on? We're a bit behind." She texted me like I was customer service. No apology, no warmth, just a demand. I stared at the message, deleted it, and never replied. Maybe she knew I heard the recording. Maybe she didn't care. That was the last I heard from her. 2 weeks later, on January 17th, my dad left a shaky voicemail. A kitchen fire, electrical issue, had destroyed everything. Smoke, water, charred cabinets. They couldn't stay there, and insurance was dragging. "Trish, help us get through the month," he pleaded. I waited a day. I knew they weren't as broke as they claimed. Rachel had just posted a photo with her new baby and a used Jeep, captioned, "New year, new start." I drove over, not out of guilt, but to see it. The house was gray under snow, Christmas decorations still up. Mom looked surprised, then hopeful. The kitchen was a mess, scorched walls, acrid smell. Rachel, wearing my old hoodie, gave an awkward smile. Mom talked fast, flattered me as the fixer. I handed her an envelope with a $50 bill. "That's what my spot at the table's worth," I said, referencing their new car. Rachel got defensive. Mom said it wasn't enough. I walked out. That night, I blocked them. No more texts, no more guilt. They unfollowed me, removed me from shared accounts. Silence. Then, 2 weeks later, Brett showed up at my door with a duffel bag. "I moved out," he said. "Your family's toxic. They fight, blame, and use your name like a problem to solve." He handed me an envelope, receipts, statements, proof Rachel opened a credit card in my name. Thousands in charges, boutiques, spa packages, a $987 furniture splurge. She'd been stealing for months, assuming I'd let it slide. I didn't sleep. The betrayal stung, but her ease hurt more. I called the credit card company and a lawyer. The account was frozen, charges erased, and marked for fraud. Rachel texted apologies, then excuses, then blamed me for escalating. Mom's voicemail called me vindictive, saying, "We don't call the police on family." I stopped answering. My lawyer handled it. Brett messaged later. He'd moved out, said Rachel blamed him for my actions. I thanked him for the truth. In March, the credit card company closed the case. My name was cleared. Dad left a quiet voicemail. "You were right. We used you. I hope you'll talk someday." I saved it, but didn't reply. Rachel kept her Jeep. My parents are rebuilding. I'm done. This started as the saddest Christmas, but became the moment I stopped shrinking for them. Walking away isn't the worst thing. Staying and letting them destroy you is.